That day, an elderly woman named Barb was sitting alone in her house, lost in thought. She was reminiscing about her beloved late husband. She then stepped outside, got into her car, and before embarking on a long journey, she made a stop to fill up the tank. With everything ready, Barb's adventure into the freezing cold began. It's the peak of winter, and Barb is on a mission to scatter her husband's ashes on a frozen lake, the very spot where they had their first date. During the drive, Barb listens to the radio for weather updates. The forecast warns of a worsening storm, with snow accumulations expected to reach 8 inches. The Department of Transportation is advising all drivers to stay off the highways. Sure enough, before she even reaches her destination, the blizzard hits. At a crossroads, Barb stops for a moment to check her map and confirm the location. Soon after, Barb spots a local resident's house. She gets out to ask for directions to the lake. That's when she starts feeling uneasy, noticing a rifle in the man and what looks like blood spattered not far away. The suspicious man introduces himself as Camo. He tells her the lake is just behind the hill, but it's a long drive by car. Mustering her courage, Barb asks him about the blood. The man casually replies that it's deer blood from his recent hunt. When she finally arrives at the lake, Barb pauses, flooded with memories of her husband from their youth. It had been so long since her last visit here. This is the spot where she plans to dig through the ice to scatter his ashes, which she keeps in her late husband's fishing tackle box. But before long, she hears the sound of a struggle coming from a nearby hill. As she moves closer to investigate, a loud gunshot rings out. Barb hides and eavesdrops on two people talking. From a conversation, she gathers that a teenage girl is being threatened, warned she'll be shot if she tries to escape again. Barb pulls out her phone to call the police, but there's no signal. She decides to pack her things back into the car and leave to find help. Unfortunately, as she tries to drive up a slope, her car spins its tires, stuck in the snow. Barb realizes she's the only hope for that kidnapped girl. This area is remote with no cell service, and it would take hours to reach the nearest town on foot. She resolves to stay and save that girl, no matter the risk. Barb scouts the cabin where the girl is being held. The kidnapper turns out to be Camo, the same man who gave her directions. She watches as Camo walks out of the cabin and drives away. Seizing the opportunity, Barb sneaks up to the locked cabin. It seems empty. She manages to find the kidnapped girl locked in the basement. The poor girl's name is Leah. Soon, 2 vehicles pull up to the cabin. The new arrivals are none other than Camo and his wife. Barb hides outside, listening to their conversation. The wife asks Camo if there were any problems with the kidnapping. Camo assures her went smoothly. He grabbed the girl as she was leaving a pharmacy in an alley where no one saw. Barb can only sigh in despair as she listens. She peers through a window and sees the wife warning Camo not to get drunk until their job is finished. Afterwards, Barb goes back to where Leah is held. She writes a message on the window for Leah. "I'm not leaving you, I promise." Leah, meanwhile, can only sit in resigned silence, trapped by these strangers with unknown intentions. Later, Barb returns to her stuck car, thinking hard about how to save the girl. She then starts pulling items out of her car's trunk. Outside the cabin, the wife steps out and wipes her bloody nose. We learn she suffers from a severe liver disease. Suddenly, she spots a glove lying on the ground near the house. She rushes to Leah's basement prison and finds a freshly written message on the window, along with footprints leading away from the cabin and up the hill. She curses in frustration, realizing someone has seen them. The wife confronts Camo about the glove. Camo dismissively explains an old lady stopped by briefly, asking for directions to Lake Hilda to go fishing. Furious, the wife grabs her rifle and orders Camo to come with her to clean up his mess. They sneak up on a fishing tent out on the frozen lake, its chimney puffing smoke. The wife orders Camo to approach the tent. But as he does, the ice beneath him shatters, and he plunges into freezing water. The wife manages to pull her husband, Camo, back to safety. Barb watched them from a distance through her binoculars. The trap she'd set had worked on the criminals. She rushed to the cabin where Leah was being held, went inside, and broke down the door to the basement. She tried to calm the terrified girl, telling her, "I'm the one who wrote on the window." Barb tore the duct tape from Leah's mouth, but she couldn't get the handcuffs off. When Barb tried to leave to find a tool, Leah became hysterical, begging her not to go. Barb promised, "I gave you my word, and I will come back for you." Before leaving, Barb ransacked the cabin. She put out the fireplace, soaked the warm blankets in water, and ruined everything the criminals could use to get warm, including the woman's pain medication. As she stepped outside, Barb was shot in the arm. The wife had returned. She kept firing as Barb took cover and tried to get away. The criminals came back to find their shelter destroyed and no way to warm up. With Camo suffering from hypothermia, they had to retreat to their vehicle. Barb made it back to her own car to treat her gunshot wound, only to find the criminals had vandalized it. She then realized one of her wedding rings was missing. She desperately searched for her late husband's ring, but couldn't find it. She even checked her fishing tent, but it wasn't there. However, she did find Camo's pistol, which had just one bullet left, and kept it for self-defense. The wife ordered a shivering Camo to get the equipment ready to move on to the lake. They were out of time. They were going to perform surgery to take Leah's liver. They had to be in Little Fork by morning to meet the doctor. Doing the surgery on the ice meant they could easily burn and sink the evidence, making the crime scene hard for police to investigate. Camo was reluctant, still freezing, but his aggressive wife forced him. He then set up the surgical tent out on the frozen lake. Barb watched from a distance, still unsure of their plan. She went back into the cabin to look for something to stitch her wound. She also searched Camo's car for food, but found nothing. She then tried to use the car's radio to call for help, stating her location was a cabin near Lake Hilda. Suddenly, Camo appeared and pulled her out of the vehicle. He attacked her, but Barb managed to dodge and fight back. Camo fell, aggravating the injury to his leg. Now, Barb was the one holding the power, aiming Camo's own pistol at him. Camo begged for his life and confessed everything. He claimed his wife had gone insane, had threatened suicide, and that he was forced into this. He said he was sick of it and wanted his old life back. As a sign of good faith, he gave Barb the wedding ring he had found in the cabin. Feeling a shred of pity, Barb agreed to let him go to town to get treated for hypothermia and to call the police. Camo also handed over the spare bullets he was carrying to prove he was serious. But on the road, Camo was intercepted by his wife. She was furious he was leaving her to go to the doctor, especially when she needed him for the surgery. Camo warned her their plan had failed, and it was only a matter of time before they were caught. But the wife was determined to see her deranged plan through. Meanwhile, Barb set her own car on fire as a signal for the park rangers she'd contacted by radio. They headed to the cabin and saw a parked car with its engine running, but it was a trap. Inside was Camo, murdered by his wife. The two park rangers were also killed, though Barb managed to escape. Now out of bullets, Barb was cornered. A section of the cabin's roof collapsed, knocking her out. When she came to, she was handcuffed next to Leah in the basement. Now Barb was a prisoner, forced to help a woman in Camo's place. She was horrified to learn the woman intended to forcibly take Leah's liver. Barb argued that Leah was young and had her whole life ahead of her, even offering her own liver instead. The woman, of course, refused, scoffing that Barb was too old and frail. When the woman let her guard down, Barb fought back, causing the tent to catch fire. The woman dragged Barb toward the hole in the ice, intending to drown her. Fortunately, Leah managed to free herself and escape the flames. The woman swung her rifle at Barb, but Barb dodged it. Barb overpowered the woman and chained her ankle with the handcuffs. To save Leah, Barb made the ultimate sacrifice. She pulled the chained woman with her into the freezing depths of the lake. She was ready to be with her late husband, Carl. As she sank, Barb pulled her husband's fishing tackle box from inside her jacket. She opened it, and in her final moments, she scattered his ashes into the waters of Lake Hilda, finally fulfilling his last wish. She was at peace, her promise kept,